Ocala National Forest, located in northern Florida, is home to many unique and amazing ecosystems. From the largest scrub forest in the world to prospering longleaf pine forests, this national park is one of the most important parts of Florida. One feature that makes this forest even more important does not even sit above the ground. Juniper Springs is one of many spring systems that surrounds and fills this park. Here people come to play, relax, and enjoy the warm Florida weather with a dip into the cool, pristine waters. You can find people enjoying the surrounding trails that line the springs or paddling down the streams in a canoe. But aside from Juniper Springs being such a great place to cool off and relax, it and the spring systems play a larger role. Florida has a very unique land structure that allows the formation of springs like Juniper. And here we have Dr. Matt Cohen to tell us how this works.
The spring reverses direction. So all of the springs along Ginnie Springs and all the springs along the Santa Fe and the Suwannee, when those rivers are high, those springs turn from blowing water to sucking water. They're basically pulling water into the aquifer. So here's river water getting pushed way back into the aquifer. Well, that water in the river is really acid. You know, rainwater is pH 5.2. River water in the Suwannee will be pH 4. So it's dissolving it's dissolving limestone as it pushes back into the aquifer, and that's why those caves are the ones you swim through. Those are the caves that you see the picture of the guys shining lights, and you can't see the other side of the cavern.
This limestone bed is somewhat unique to Florida, and it is what holds structure to the Floridian aquifer. But what is limestone, and how does it create the aquifer?
So that's all deposited down there, and it forms a rock made out. It's basically a biological rock, right? It's also soluble, so if you acidify the water a little bit, and that rainwater is slightly acidic, and the water that's percolating through the soil is even more acidic, you get down there, it starts dissolving. And so what happens in the aquifer, you start off with a big chunk of limestone, and you start raining on it and pumping water through it, and pretty soon these fissures, these big holes start to form in it, and they form these what we call conduits, right? And that basically allows water that falls way far over there to get to the spring very quickly, because there's basically an underground pipe.
This process is very important, not just to the forests and ecosystems surrounding, but to all people in Florida. The Floridian aquifer provides the state its fresh water for not only daily purposes, but for agriculture and drinking. This makes the threat of contamination a major threat. Due to agriculture, the addition of nitrogen and other fertilizers have become a concern to the health of the springs. They have the potential to seep or run down into the limestone bedding or into rivers and streams that feed the aquifer. Such contamination is an issue, but the potential depletion of oxygen from within the aquifer has become an even larger concern.
So, maybe algae in some settings isn't that bad. Now, there are places where clearly the algae's gotten worse, and in those places, where the algae's gotten really bad, nitrogen is actually not a very good predictor of how much there is, or why it's gotten bad here and not there, or in this spot of the river or this other spot. But oxygen is a pretty good predictor. And one of the things that we think is happening is that as people use water for agriculture and for municipalities and all this other stuff, I mean, imagine the aquifer is 300 feet thick, the upper Floridan aquifer. The aquifer goes down another 2,700 feet to the bottom where it's not limestone anymore. But that upper 300 feet is the upper Floridan aquifer, and we're basically sucking water off the upper 30, 40, 50 feet of that. That's, we don't sink a well down 250 feet. You sink a well down, in my house, 140 feet. In a lot of parts of Alachua County, you sink it down 110, 120 feet. You're taking the top of that water. And the top of the water is the most oxygenated water. And so we're preferentially, if you think of what comes out of the spring vent as a mixture of shallow and deep water, and we're basically taking preferentially the shallow water, then what's left is low oxygen water. And we think that's what's killing the snails, and we think that killing the snails is what's making the algae.
These issues could greatly alter the ecosystem and all of Florida itself, so there have been precaution measures put into effect.
Obviously this land is conserved, but lots of lands around the St. John's aren't, and they try to strategically buy lands that would have some water preservation or conservation value. They do a lot of research about water quality. They are Florida Department of Environmental Protection essentially gives them the authority to determine when water bodies are sick because of nutrient pollution or other kinds of pollution. They do, yeah, they just have a lot of, they basically oversee the water systems, and I think, so that means that they're in partnership with cities and counties and Forest Service and the Florida Forest Service, the U.S. Forest Service. They're in partnership with basically anybody that has a stake in the water, either because they're potential polluters or they're potential users or they're the ones that are the recipients of water that is of higher or lower quality downstream. Which means, of course, that they upset everybody, right? I mean, they're the most unpopular agency because, of course, they're either not doing their job well enough or they are, you know, overly draconian. It's hard to be in their position, but they are sort of vested by state law with the mandate to protect the water systems, and so that that forces them to be in a lot of partnerships. It's quite an impressive agency. I mean, the scientists that work there are, you know, lots of PhDs, really, really bright people, and they're trying to do the right thing. I mean, it's not easy. You know, they had their budgets cut substantially in the last couple of years, and maybe for the best. I mean, there was probably a lot of excess overhead, but they, you know, they have an important job.
So next time you are using fresh water, think about where it comes from and how valuable the water truly is. It is up to us as citizens and foresters to protect such a unique and important commodity. And also, don't forget to take a dip. The water is really nice.